Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Defender. Great to be with everybody again. Glad you guys are with us for some more content. Glad we're able to get another video out to you. As always, thank you very, very much for all the new subscribers. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad all you guys are here. Welcome back to all of our current subscribers. Great to be with everybody again. So thank you for all that. Please continue to subscribe. It's a difficult long road with YouTube, unfortunately, and firearms. So, please continue to support the channel whenever you can, and especially if you like the content and all of that. So, one of the other things I wanted to make a statement is of course, a great comments as always. Really appreciate that. This video also is kind of an extension of one of the comments that I recently got on my video on the HK USP 9mm compact, and the comment was basically looking for a double action, single action plus P plus gun, and what's really out there, and this is it, the HK USP. This is what they have produced and over engineered for us and for the community. And so that was a great lead in my opinion, to one of the next videos I wanted to do. And it helped me because I was kind of contemplating which video to do next. And I decided I wanted to do this USP 9mm full size. And I wanted to do it again because of the comment of that particular viewer, because I thought other people may be interested in it as well. And I wasn't sure if they were contemplating, compact or full size, and what their goals and objectives were with the firearm. But I had wanted one of these for probably close to 6 months to a year, and just could not find one locally. Ironically, I was able to find the experts and the tactical versions. I don't want to say regularly, but more easily. That just wasn't what I wanted for the particular purpose of this firearm, and also my budget or my cost structure. This was kind of really where I wanted to kind of max out with this particular project. And so it just actually was at a gun show, and then kind of inadvertently decided to stop at a shop on the way home, and walked in and asked the shop owner if he had an HK USP full size 9mm, and he's like, actually I do. And then he was kind enough to help me out on the price, and also give me an H&K soft case. I had never bought a firearm there before, so I think we were in that relationship building mode. So, and I'll certainly go back and buy another firearm from them. There's no question about that. Unfortunately, it's not around the corner from my house, but certainly whenever I'm up that way, I'm going to be stopping in. But so that's why I wanted to spend some time with this HK USP 9mm full size. And also, I just recently seen some different posts and creations and videos and such on this firearm again, which I found interesting. And also just asking if there's any relevance to it any longer. Is it kind of a dinosaur? And man, I was just kind of taken aback by that. I think there's absolute relevance for this firearm, and it is absolutely not a dinosaur. It is a extremely well-engineered, over-engineered, I'll say that again, over-engineered firearm. And we'll talk a little bit more about why I like that, and why I think it's important, and where it kind of falls in the balance of, what's out there in the marketplace. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But this gun is absolutely not irrelevant or past its prime. It is an 80s child. It was born out of the 1980s, and ironically, it's born out of which we've talked about on this channel before with the Smith & Wesson firearms, out of the 1986 FBI Miami shooting. There was this, as you guys probably know, again, based on some comments. If you don't know anything about the FBI Miami shooting, I highly encourage you to research it. It's fascinating. Books, movies, videos, YouTube, all of it talking about the Miami shooting. But it's a crucible moment in time within law enforcement, because of that event, and the level of scrutiny that event got, and then where the FBI wanted to take handgun cartridge design, caliber, etc. And then it kind of changed law enforcement for sure in terms of what was carried. And I think also then civilians normally follow law enforcement and military choices for obvious reasons. So, but this USP wasn't a 9mm; it was a 40 cal, and we'll talk about that more in the deep dive. But interestingly enough, this particular firearm came out of that FBI Miami shooting for H&K. So I think that's already kind of a long-winded intro. So let's go ahead and get straight into the deep dive, so we can get into more of these details and get into the review of this HK USP 9mm full size. So as I was talking about in the intro, this is a very, very interesting firearm. We've got a lot to unpack here. We've got some history, we've got some lineage back to other firearms, we've got some comparisons. I certainly want to do a deep dive and tell you what I like about it and why I'm using it kind of as my primary home defense gun, things like that. So we've got a number of things that I kind of want to unpack with this video. So bear with me as we kind of get through it. But I think they're all really interesting points, and it's just fun to kind of review and talk about these USP pistols. So, with that in mind, I guess the first jumping off point is a little bit of history. And as I stated in the intro, once again, we have the FBI Miami shooting in 1986, driving decisions, driving product development and cartridge development. And H&K saw that, to their credit. They really didn't have anything, by the way, for the traditional U.S. law enforcement market. They didn't have double action, single action pistols. They had their P7 9mm, but they didn't have anything else in any other calibers. And they quickly picked up in the mid 80s what the FBI was doing and developing with Smith & Wesson and the 10mm, but also they were very astute and picking up on the cues of what was happening with the 40 Smith & Wesson. And so my understanding is H&K in that mid 80s, after the shootout through the late 80s, 88, 89, was developing a pistol that they felt the U.S. law enforcement market, probably specifically the FBI, would be interested in. And so they actually start with a 40 cal. And we have one of those here, also another safe and clear firearm. But they actually start with a 40 cal, 40 Smith & Wesson caliber, because of this FBI shootout and the Crucible event and what's going on, like we just talked about. So they actually start developing the pistol specifically around a 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge, knowing that they can easily get to a 9mm, or the platform will handle a 9mm. So and from a timing standpoint, they introduced the 40 Smith & Wesson in early 1993. So it does take H&K a little time. I mean, again, traditional German company, I think, very slow, very deliberate, very specific, few, if any, errors. And then you get a product that is kind of worthy of that. So in early 1993, they introduced the 40 Smith & Wesson as a full size. In late 1993, they introduced the USP 9mm full size, and then several years later, they introduced a 45 caliber pistol. And again, all these are clear and safe, but we'll do that. Good idea, right? And so in I think it was mid 90s, they introduced the 45 ACP. Again, understanding that there's still an interest by U.S. law enforcement in the 45 ACP. There's still enough agencies and departments using 45 ACP. Certainly the town that I grew up in was using 45 ACP at that time. And so they were astute to pick up on that and then brought out the 45. But back to the kind of the 9mm and 40, because they're really siblings here, to say the least. And so is the 45, right? They all based off this HK USP platform. But so that's kind of our lineage and why H&K brings this from the history standpoint. Then I think, the next point we want to talk about is, again, this over-engineered, extremely high quality build quality, materials of construction, all of that comes into this USP pistol. And again, I just think it's worth mentioning because I think it's very interesting, the kind of the torture test or development torture test that they put these USPs through, and just kind of rattling it off really quick. I think there was a 10,000 round test to begin with, stopping, then cycling the slides 1,000 times, and then restarting tests. And I think they got to a total of 20,000 rounds without any, major breakages or major wear or reduction in accuracy. That seemed to be the H&K criteria, right? No major wear, no major reduction in accuracy. They went on and did what I call the specific or intentional squib load into the barrel, and then firing a live round and specifically seeing if the firearm will hold up, and it does, and it passes that test without, again, any damage, wear, or major reduction in accuracy. Pretty amazing, quite frankly. They go through their other litany of torture design tests with the multiple drop tests on multiple surfaces at different angles. You've got this extreme temperature requirement that they came up with. You've got the extreme conditions, like testing with the sand and the mud and the saltwater tests and freezing rain and all of that kind of thing. And so they put this whole pistol together in terms of that design criteria, and this is what we have, which I think is pretty amazing. We talk a little bit about that. Does really anybody really do that? And I'll make 2 points on that. One, we also can't ignore the fact that generally this same time, this late 80s, 90s, H&K is developing the MK23 Mod 0 for US SOCOM in 45 ACP. And my understanding is there was a lot of shared information and components and what was working and what wasn't. Very, very, again, sibling-like, cousin-like product lines, although they were designed in parallel, I guess, because there was a military requirement and contract, and then H&K wanted to bring this to a law enforcement and probably ultimately a civilian market. So, we have that going on. So all of these torture tests is kind of coming together, and you can see H&K using these torture design tests in both platforms. And thankfully, then we get all the benefits with the USP. And the other requirements or the other things that they then start to do is, with the proprietary polymer material, at least it was proprietary back then. The slide had the HE, or hostile environment coating, which is an extremely durable coating, which they wanted also for saltwater, for amphibious units and things like that. Then all the metal internal components were coated or treated with a Dow Corning material, as I recall. I don't remember the name of the material, but so they were cognizant of all the internal parts and wear parts that also needed to be protected from corrosion. And so, again, quite amazingly, we get to this USP pistol. And I think that's really the neat part about the story, and one of the things that really fascinates me and impresses me about the product, and why I really enjoy the product, and I'm a supporter of the brand, the H&K brand, and that's what attracts me to the pistol. I do want to state, that there are some very, very good firearms, as most of you probably know, that have been tried and true in a lot of duty holsters over the years and decades. Glock is obviously at the top of that list generally. You can't ignore what SIG has done. You can't ignore really what Smith & Wesson has done with their M&P line, and really how well that functions. I just saw a really neat torture test that somebody was doing online. You guys probably know the channel, and the M&P really was impressive. It outperformed many manufacturers in that particular torture test that they did, which was pretty interesting. But that, I think, that just gets us to what H&K was doing. And my point to that was that I understand and I get it, that you don't have to spend this dollar amount to get a pistol that is duty worthy and worthy of self-defense, and that you can trust your life on, and all of that, for a price that's probably half, maybe can't quite do it for half anymore, but probably 2/3 the cost of, let's say, a USP. So you do have to take that into account. But if the price point is acceptable to you and within your budget, and you're also looking for a double action, single action firearm rated for plus P and plus P plus, and that was another reason that I wanted to do this video, because we had that viewer comment and ask about plus P plus as a double action, single action firearm, and that he was quickly gravitating to the HK USP, specifically the compact, I believe. But it was one of the other reasons I wanted to get this video out on the full size. So I had my impressions and my opinions out on it. And again, maybe it's helpful for some other folks. So so that's kind of, our history side to it. And, I'm sure there's a few other points here I'll remember as I start to talk, but that's kind of our jumping off point, and kind of for me, what's impressive about the H&K. So let's talk a little bit about this 9mm and what I like about it. And of course, we'll clear it and safety check it. Again, I guess one of the very first things I want to mention is that it is full size, and generally I'm not a huge fan of full size pistols, and let me kind of explain that. So, and I think that comes from a bit of a, I don't know about training scar, but some type of scar with a Glock 17. Whenever I had picked up the Glock 17, and I was a big Glock 19 guy at the time, I don't know, there was something about that firearm that, I don't know if it was the grip angle or the actual length. It just never felt overly comfortable to me. It didn't feel drivable to me in terms of driving the firearm onto target. It almost felt broom handle-ish to me. So it was just too long. It just felt odd. And I think that's one of those things where if you pick up a firearm and it doesn't feel good in your hand, and it doesn't feel like an extension of you, you're probably not going to warm up to that firearm. It's possible that you might, right? You might learn to love it or grow to love it. Or if it's the only firearm that you have, if you're issued a Glock 17 is your duty firearm, and that's what you're going to train with, eventually you will get there, obviously. But if you have choices and it's your choice to pick and choose, and you're not getting that kind of feeling, at least for me, then I start to kind of drift away from it, and it no longer kind of really is doing what I want it to do, because I have other options. I can pick up other firearms and maybe get to exactly what I'm trying to do. So, and I did find that interesting, because I did run the numbers and the to the Glock 17, and the 17 is longer. 17 is about a little over 8 inches. This USP 9mm full size is 7.6. The barrel's 4.2 on the HK, and it's 4.48, I believe it was, almost 4.5 inches on the Glock 17. So it also wasn't just my opinion or impression or feeling of the firearm. It was longer, it was bigger, and again, it just didn't feel overly comfortable or balanced to me. So that's my story on full size, and why I generally kind of steer away from it. The USP compact video that I did, refer to that again kind of as that Goldilocks kind of size. Again, the comparison would be a Glock 19, which I think a lot of people hold as the kind of the gold standard for a concealed carry firearm. And a lot of manufacturers have tried to marry up to that or match up to that for obvious reasons. And HK did an excellent job, with the HK USP compact, and that's what that video was all about. I've just totally fallen in love with that, because for me, the compact is that perfect firearm. It's balanced, it's drivable, it doesn't feel overly large, it's concealable, it's got good capacity, all those things. And I think that's why that Glock 19 and USP compact just start checking all these boxes for everybody, just down the list on how well those things work. But of course, if you're looking for a double action, single action, hammer fired gun, you're starting to get a little limited there, which I am. But back to this firearm specifically, this now felt more balanced. It didn't feel as broom handle, and that's the only word I can think of. It still felt a little bit on the compact side, even though it's a full-size firearm. The grip and grip size and angle was, so easy to hit this TL3 light here. But this grip angle and the grip itself was very nice. I did notice that because of and I guess we could talk about that. So on the USP full size firearms, at least the 9mm and the P40. It's a polymer magazine. And so when you move to the compact version, and even the P2000 and the P30s, if I remember correctly, they are all a metal magazine, similar to something like this. But H&K, when they first started the USP, they went with a polymer magazine. And I honestly don't remember why that was. I may do a little research before I complete the video or publish it, but I don't remember exactly why they went with polymer. You can see, to me, it's very Glock-like, so maybe that had something to do with it. It happens to be a 15-round capacity, so this is probably where H&K, gets an okay, gets a kind of a green check mark. At least for capacity. At least it's 15 rounds, right? You can start to argue, why isn't it 17 rounds or something like that? But at least we've got 15 rounds in a polymer magazine with a flat base plate in this case, and so that's very nice. That works very well for me for a home defense gun. But my point to that was not only the polymer magazine, but it did feel that the polymer magazine and the way they constructed the just slightly thicker. And again, I didn't run a caliper to it, but it feels slightly thicker on the USP for the grip than it does the compact. And again, I can only maybe attribute that to that the compact uses the metal magazines, or at least this style magazine. So, yeah, for whatever that's worth. But let's kind of do our walk around here. So again, I've already kind of given you the dimension side of this firearm. Again, it's very, very well done from a machining standpoint, right? You've got this large block slide, but not overly so. It doesn't feel as blocky to me as the Glock because of some of the machining that they've done here. So I think it's a prettier gun in that regard. We've got our rear serrations on the back, no front serrations at this point. And again, this is this HE or hostile environment coating across the entire slide. The Hammermate, I believe, also has that HE coating, and I believe the rest of the internals have the Dow Corning material. In this case, we have a 3-dot white sight, but these are now painted. If you've seen my other video with the glow on or glow in the dark sight paint, I went ahead and did these. So you've got a 3-dot, in this case, green rear and orange or red front. And really like this. So just a kind of a continuing on with the paint review. No problems at all with the paint. I've got it on multiple firearms. We've now been on it for months and have gone shooting and have cleaned firearms and absolutely no issue with it. Obviously not. I didn't really cover that point off in the paint video, but maybe just to make that point known, obviously you're not going to do something like this for a full duty gun or something like that. But if you're looking for an inexpensive way just to turn a 3-dot white sight into something much nicer for day and at least some level of capability at night with a quick 1-second flashlight burst, you're in business with this paint. So far, I'm a believer in it. But at any rate, they're full metal sights. They would have been 3-dot white, obviously replaceable, drifting those out. Really, on this side, it's very clean. There's nothing really on the slide. You've got your barrel stamped at HK 9mm. On this side, you've got your standard information stamped into the slide. You've got your serial number information there, and so forth. Then kind of moving down onto the frame, it is a polymer frame, so this is very nice. We've talked about this in other videos. It's another thing that appealed to me. I was really liking the SIG 229 in 9mm. Again, maybe just my age. I'm getting a little cranky. The weight of that firearm was a little bothersome for me. Not every day, but at certain times, or if my back was bothering me or something like that, even though I was using a good belt and holster. I did find that it was nice to go back to a polymer frame. As much as I like all metal guns, I mean, that is actually my preferred firearm platform, and also very enjoyable to shoot. And you guys know that from my Smith & Wesson videos on the 3rd gen and 2nd and 1st gen Smiths. But I also really enjoy that in the SIGs. But this weight savings, especially on the compact where you're carrying that all the time, was really, really nice. Really nice to go back to that. So, and again, this was a proprietary type of polymer that H&K used. I don't know if it's really proprietary any longer. If they developed this back in the 80s, I would suspect whatever patents they had, etc., have expired. You have a, I guess, fairly large but not overly intrusive slide lock, slide stop, depending on your preference. It is not ambi, so we don't have anything on this side. That includes the safety and decocker, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You do not have a, well, let me state it this way. You have a proprietary rail. So on the USPs, that makes things a little challenging. One of the very nice workarounds I've found is this TLR3 light by Streamlight. And I have a number of Streamlights and really, really like them. No issues with them. I think it's a great product, great value. I think I've mentioned it before, great customer service. I had a problem with a tail switch at one point and simply just called them up, and the part, no questions asked, nothing, just the part showed up a few days later. So fantastic company, love them. But what they do make is this, I guess, rail adapter or HK rail adapter plate, whatever term we want to use, and that allows this TLR3 to match up to this full size. So this is working really well. It's not overly intrusive like a TLR7. This 3 is just a really nice size and a very nice light. So that's kind of the statement there. We've got this oversized trigger guard, which they're well known for. I don't know, it looks a little bigger on video than I think it really is, or maybe people make a bigger deal of it than it really is. Obviously, it's super nice for gloved hands if you're going to be working in that environment. We then move easily down to the very traditional trigger guard mag release, which I've talked about in other videos. I just don't have any issue with this. One of the knocks on H&Ks is, it's not a button, and this is over here, and it's different. As I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. It's just, for me, it's extremely intuitive. It's very button-like. It's just, instead of a press, it's a push down. There's just no real issue to that. I think this has been made out to be much, much bigger than it is. There is a little bevel and undercut. I don't know. You can kind of see that right there. If you kind of take a look at that, I'm not sure that's really showing up on camera, but there is a little bit of a bevel undercut there, which is nice. Obviously, there's only so much they can do with that with the trigger guard mag release, but they have done it, and maybe you can see it if I turn it that way. Yeah, you can kind of see that concave look to that. So they've done a nice job there. The stippling and texturing, I think, is excellent. I do love the grip tape, and you guys have seen some videos on that, whether it's the handle it grips or the Talon grips, and all of that. But the way that they did this skateboard style stippling or texturing on both of the panels is excellent. Very almost aggressive front and similar back, but since it's the polymer, it's not chewing up your hand like a metal heavy texturing would be. I think it was a new Springfield, was it an Emissary, that was just, it seemed brutal on my hands. I think that was the one I had picked up not too long ago. It was noticeably tearing my hands up just handling the thing. So this is very nice. Now, easily you can put a grip tape on that if you want to. But yeah, again, this is just very, very nice. And for me, again, I have small to medium-sized hands. The grip is fine. It's not too wide. It's not too large. Sorry, we're a little close to the camera there. But this is not an overly thick grip. It's not blocky. We don't have any of those feelings or anything like that. So I think an excellent job here. A little bit of a kind of a nice undercut. There's no beaver tail per se, but this classic polymer design there to get a good upward purchase. And you're fairly high on it. Not maybe not up as high as a Glock, but you're fairly high on it. Then we get to the safety decocker, right? So in classic HK form, at least for the USPs. I think there were 9 variants. I forgot to look that up before I started the video, but I believe there were 9 different variants to this setup. And I think that's kind of neat. Straight out of the box, I believe this was a V1 variant, so we can cock and lock it. We can safely decock the pistol, and we can also put the pistol on safe. So you've got those kind of 3 options with the firearm. I don't normally run anything with a manual safety in a carry configuration. Although, I'm warming up to this, and I wanted to make a point about that. I'm warming up to this a little bit when I have to take this firearm out. In the state that I live in, there are obviously certain locations you cannot take a firearm into. And so you're usually storing it and locking it in a glove box or what have you. Sometimes I can take the holster off with the gun, sometimes I can't. And one of the nice things about at least having a manual safety is we can add one more degree of safety as we're maybe moving the firearm around in the car, getting it to a glove box or what have you. So I've kind of found a new, I guess, if you will, a new use for these that I would have not had any use for in the past. So that's our decocker safety variant on this one. Full trigger, serrated trigger, if you will. There's nothing recessed about this trigger or bobbed or anything like that. Again, pretty traditional on a duty style gun, double action, single action. Nothing really further here. It is not an ambi decocker and safety in that regard. You could move the decocker safety onto this side, but it does not come set up with an ambi. Kind of moving down to the bottom of the frame. You've seen this before on the other HKs. They've got these half moon dimples or indentations, so we can claw out a magazine if we had gotten one stuck in there. I don't know if I'd really consider that a beveled magazine. Maybe a little bit, or well, I should say. But it's certainly wide and open, and so there's, that's quite straightforward. It's a big, wide open mouth for the magazine. Magazines drop out very easily. No sticking or anything like that. Sometimes at Glock mags, I remember being in some training classes where you're ensuring you're stripping out mags and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's I think that's pretty much our walk around. I don't think I'm forgetting anything major there that you guys would want to know. How did it shoot and how do I like it, right? And all those kinds of things. So this was one of these where I took it to the range for the very first time and, set up the target at whatever it was, 7 or 10 yards, and drilled one right through the X. So it was almost like, I should really call it quits. That's kind of your perfect start. But I didn't go downhill from there much farther. But what I really obviously wanted to do is put multiple, several hundred rounds through the firearm, different types of ammunition, different manufacturers of ammunition, spend some time with hollow points. Generally, I run Federal HST, but I ran different bullet weights and all that, and it performed flawlessly, just as I expected it to. That was another part of the design criteria. I don't know if it was happenstance or they built it in, and I don't know how they built it into the design, but I had read that they had just run gobs and gobs of different styles of commercially available ammunition through these USPs before they released them. And so the pistol was extremely accurate. I did notice that the entire time I was shooting it. Again, I don't normally go with full-size firearms, as I had mentioned to you. So I think that was certainly playing a role in it. I was getting an advantage having the full-size firearm. I do believe the USP is an extremely accurate firearm on its own. So it was probably helping me out a little bit, making me a little bit better than maybe I am actually. But the package really worked. And I think that's maybe one of the final takeaways is that the package for me absolutely worked. Maybe didn't fall head over heels like I did for the compact version, but this full size, the accuracy, the recoil management was very good. And I should state H&K does have a specific dual spring recoil system on all of their full-size USPs. They can't quite do that in the compact, so they use a slightly different recoil reduction system with that buffer component. I think we've talked about that before. Maybe I'll take a firearm apart one time and show that to you, but or at least I should say of the component off to the side. But the recoil was very, very easy on this firearm. Again, I kind of expect that. It's a full-size firearm. We have a little bit of weight, although it's not a full metal firearm. But I think just the weight of the slide and this excellent recoil reduction system that HK came up with, I walked out of the range literally saying this now is the home defense gun. It was amazing. Not that my 229 wasn't. I have a 229 Legion, very very good firearm. But again, kind of sticking now with the HK platforms, a lot of the USPs, manual of arms with the different controls and such. It's not that difficult, obviously, for me to move over to the P2000, which I really like. I'm going to do a video on that. You saw the other video maybe where I compared it to the 6904. That was kind of fun, but I've been carrying that P2000 SK now also as well. That's kind of my carry rotation right now is the USP Compact and the P2000 SK. And I'll do a video on that shortly because I'm really liking that P2000 SK. But to kind of wrap this up, that gives you some history, some input on what H&K was trying to do. And I guess just going all the way back to the original part of the intro, is the USP still relevant? Absolutely. I don't know how it can't be. And I think it is still relevant. And there still are people very interested in this product because it keeps coming back up. It hasn't just disappeared over the last 10 years or what have you. It keeps coming up. I'm a relatively new HK enthusiast, and so it's front and center for me. There aren't a lot of these in the shops. I was actually able to find, maybe I mentioned this earlier, I was able to find the Tactical and the Expert fairly easy, generally easier. Let me just say easier than just the straight up USP. And for me, that's all I wanted. I didn't want to spend the extra multiple $100s into some of those. They were also getting longer. So that was now getting to my little zone where I'm not comfortable with it. I don't like it. This standard HK USP 9mm, their full size, perfect for me. Absolutely perfect for my home defense gun. And if I had to carry it or went to a training class and decided to go with this, it would be super comfortable and I would really enjoy it. So I think it's very, very relevant today. I actually wish they got a little bit more attention than they are getting. I wish shops had more of them. I think people would at least talk and think about them if more shops had them. And I don't know, there seems to be, maybe I mentioned this earlier too, a bit of a kind of a cult status maybe coming back to double action, single action, people who just actually can stand up and say, hey, I really like that. I don't need a striker fire pistol. I actually like shooting this, or I think this is the better solution for me as a civilian, CCW. So I think there's some of that. We also have this kind of resurgence, it looks like, with the 1911 platform and 9mm. That's kind of interesting. You are seeing other manufacturers bring all metal guns back too. So a lot of movement, I think, in the firearms manufacturing industry and what people are looking for or wanting. Maybe again, maybe they've similar to me, where we've kind of run this striker fired gamut, and as generic good as that is, as Honda Accord or Toyota Camry as that is, maybe some people do want more out of something and do want to look at other platforms. So maybe a little bit long-winded there, so I apologize for that, but just a lot of fun to talk about this firearm, and I really wanted to get it out there. Hopefully that helps you guys, and hopefully I didn't miss anything. If I'll add anything into the video that I think was super urgent that I may have missed, but thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you again very soon on the Daily Defender.